Hey everyone. So for this week's show, I have a very special guest. It is a friend of mine all the way in the US. It's Venice, a registered nurse. How are you, Venice?
Hi, how are you? I'm doing good. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you come on the show and have a chill time and a fun time with me tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me. I am excited to, tell you what it's like to be a nurse in the US. And for you guys who are watching this, you can, compare and contrast what it's like being a nurse in your country versus my country. Or like, I live in California, specifically in the Bay Area. So if you are watching from outside of California, you can see like, the difference between a California nurse and a nurse outside the state.
Yeah, awesome. Perfect. Introduction done. So here's the thing. I want to know what it takes to become a nurse. So like what do you actually have to do to become one?
So to become a nurse, you need a bachelor's degree in in nursing, obviously. So
Yeah.
how it typically works is that you apply to there's many ways. So like what I did, I'm kind of different. This is like my second career. So when I went to school, I was a pre-law student, so I had to take a different route. So like the first 2 years, for any colleges in the US, the first 2 years it's always going to be prerequisites like English, math,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
regular sciences. It doesn't matter what your major is, but those are the things that you're going to have to take. And then the last 2 years is like the concentration of your major. So because I was not a nursing major first, I was a philosophy grad. My last 2 years, I had to take a bunch of like literature
No
classes
way.
and philosophy classes. Yeah, yeah.
I would have
Um,
never I would have never pegged you for that.
I many people would say the same thing. They're like, "Oh, I could never see you as an attorney," and I'm like, "Okay." But anyway, so
Not in a
obviously,
bad way, not in a bad way.
yeah, they said it's about the personality, but I was like, "All right, whatever, it's fine with me."
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I graduated with a philosophy major. So and then I realized to myself that I don't want to be an attorney anymore, and I had to do a lot of thinking. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to be a nurse. So because I already finished my prerequisites and some of the classes I took for the last 2 years of my philosophy is able to count from one of the requirements in my university. I only had to take science classes. So I need to, when I applied to
Okay.
Samuel Merritt, my university called Samuel Merritt, it's in Oakland. They have this list of like classes that I needed to take.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so some of my philosophy classes counted, so I didn't have to take that. But there are other things like, anatomy, physiology,
Hmm.
microbiology, the core science classes. I had to take that outside of Samuel Merritt and then apply to Samuel Merritt after. So
Okay.
basically, Samuel Merritt is a 2 year, you take your last 2 years there. Because you know how I
Got
was
it.
saying earlier? Yeah, the last 2 years is
Yeah,
like
yeah, you get your first two
concentration.
years and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
okay, got it.
So that's what it's like for me. But for other people, what they can do is like they can apply to a 4 year right away. Um, so again, for the first 2 years, they take prerequisites, and then they take the required classes, and then the last 2 years, if there's a nursing program in their school, and if they get in, then they're in. So
Okay.
so that's what it's normally like. But besides the classes, nursing schools would want you to have volunteer experience. Yeah, they want you to have volunteer experience. Sometimes like a good work experience helps. Like I know a lot of people who were certified nursing assistants or caregivers. That's a
Okay.
plus. Yeah, that's a plus. So things like that.
Sounds pretty straightforward to me. I mean, if you're going to be like a caregiver before the nursing career, then it's like you're kind of made for doing that, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
so okay, how but how is it different from like let's say a standard medical degree if you want to become a doctor or like a dentist or something where you have to go on and do, you know, more medical classes? Like are there also medical and biological classes or anything like that that you got to do as well?
If you want to be a doctor, it's very different from being a nurse to a doctor.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
like
so,
for a
yeah.
nurse, for a nurse.
So if I want to be a doctor after being a nurse,
No,
I
no,
think
I'm saying, is there a difference between what you got to do to be a nurse, like the amount of medical stuff you have to study in comparison, or do you have to know more or less like similar things to what they have to know as well?
I'm pretty sure there are a lot of things that overlap. Like in nursing
Okay.
school, we had to take classes like pharmacology, and I'm sure that they have pharmacology classes in med school as well, but we don't have to know as much as they do. Because I just have to remind you again that for nursing, it's a bachelor's degree, whereas to doctors, they like study for like twice the amount of, years that
Yeah.
we did. So it's much different. But um, yeah, they're just so for nurses we take care of the patients, right? We cure
Yeah.
the patient, but for doctors they cure the illness of the patient. So
Right.
they're very like person concentrated, whereas they're more into like diagnosis, illness concentrated.
Okay. It's interesting. So, right. So then you think that it's kind of important to be, good with people, no matter who you're with, when you're a nurse, because you're kind of like the aftercare, if you can kind of call it that.
Hmm.
Is that what you would say?
Well, we are more like the middleman between like, we're like in the middle, doctor, nurse, patient, or patient's family.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we do need to have really good like, customer service. It's kind of like customer service. We really need to have that
Okay.
quality so that like we can deliver like, patient-centered care.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like empathy goes a long way, obviously.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, like in advocacy for sure, because like the doctors are not by bedside as much as we are, so they don't know the patients as much as we do. So if the patient needs
Hmm.
something, and I think that I need to do something about it, and the doctor doesn't know anything, obviously I'm gonna have to step up and say something to the doctor, be like, hey, my patient is this, I need this, or like my patient's
Yeah.
this, what do you think? Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So, I feel like whenever I see nurses or whenever I read articles about nurses online, like it's long hours. It seems to be very like very intensive in like what you do and like how long you do it for, and then also the payback for that in comparison to like what a doctor would get, or anybody else like a psychiatrist or whatever, is very different as well, right? So,
Yeah.
aside from those, let's say, stereotypical things that we see in the news, like what would you say is like very difficult about being a nurse? At least where you are, right? You can speak from your own experience.
Uh, yeah. So besides the working long hours, what else is very difficult? Oh, in my experience, I would say one of the most difficult things that's not talked about is that you get attached to your patients, and when or their families, like you, because like you make this
Mm,
connection with your patients and your families. Especially for me,
yeah,
I work in CVICU, so I have a lot of very critical patients, and as
right.
much as I hate to say this, a lot of them are, could be actively dying, right? That's why they're there, because we were in
Yeah,
the higher acuity care. So a lot of them stay in that unit for, weeks to months. And you get to
right.
know the patient, you get to know their family. And I feel like one thing that we don't really talk about is that, you know, they become family to us. Like they
Yeah,
become a part of our lives. So when they don't make it, it's hard for us to take it as well. It's like, oh my God, like, he was okay yesterday and today he's gone. You know what I'm trying to say? So
yeah, actually.
I find that very difficult. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I have cried in front of patients' families without me. I
No
was like, okay,
way.
don't cry. But like, yeah, because like you see, it's someone's dad, mom, brother, sister, and you kind of like, oh my God, like this is happening. Like, life is short, you know. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
so that's one of the most difficult things about it. Um, I'm sure this other thing has been talked a lot about, but like it's really important that you have a good source in your unit. Like I believe that my unit is really a lot of them are really good people. I can count on them, and I made a lot of friends. So at least that's good for me because I've heard a lot of nurses who are saying like, oh yeah, I almost quit my job because of my coworker. And
Oh,
thankfully, I'm blessed with good coworkers, and I'm really good friends with a lot of them.
okay. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that because actually you're right. I never actually thought of that because the nurses are the ones that are kind of with those guys, with the ones that are in the ICU rooms, also with the families, like all the way to the end, like from the beginning of when they come in to the end, assuming they don't make it, right? But
Yeah.
like, what's the sense of realization like when you get that continuous life is short moments? Because I feel like normal people, okay, I wouldn't say normal people, but let's say non-medical industry people like myself, we get those life is short moments when we lose someone close to us, which fortunately is not very often, right?
hmm
Whereas for you, it's part of what you do on a regular basis. So like how does it feel getting that sense of realization all the time?
It's it's like so. What happens is that, for example, there's a patient in my unit, right? Was admitted last night, and I am the new nurse coming onto the shift. And
Yeah.
how we normally do it is that like another nurse would give me a report. So in that report, they would give me like history, background, what's been done, what needs to be done, who the doctor, all of those things, right? And like if it's my first time being with that patient, getting the report, sometimes I'm like, what? Like, what happened? Because like there will be times where like, oh yeah, the patient was just sitting and then suddenly had a heart attack, and we're like, oh my god, that's crazy. Or like, oh, patient was just out shopping with his wife and he fell. So you know
Hmm.
those things. It's like everything is sudden sometimes. And
Yeah.
then there's this one patient. He just came in. He was unconscious. He came in unconscious. No ID, no nothing that identifies him. So every time the patient comes in with no identification, we call them John Doe, regardless of
Yeah.
gender. Yeah, so it's John Doe, and we're like, no one's claiming him. We don't know what's going on, or we don't know where the family is. So we call the
Hmm.
police, get fingerprinted, and then you call the family, and the family's like, wait, what happened? Like they're in shock. I'm in shock. Everyone's
Mm.
in shock. We're like, oh my god, like it's just unfortunate that things happen so suddenly like that. Like it's when you least expect it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For sure. It's crazy. I mean, it's interesting to think about it that way. I actually never thought about it that way. So,
hmm And
so
it's not
yeah,
just
man.
old people in my unit. We get people of all ages. Well, predominantly older people because it's a cardiac unit. But
Yeah,
yeah, we're not a
yeah,
pediatrics or my unit is not a pediatrics hospital. But the youngest I have seen was 32, and he didn't make it. Yeah,
yeah. Hey, man, anything's possible, Like I know I've known people in high school when I was in high school that had like heart attacks in school just because, you know, something was just
yeah,
wrong in their system, but they didn't know it, but it was so sudden. So yeah, man, anything is possible with these kinds of things. But
yeah. You
yeah, so
never
tell me,
know.
so you're nursing in the Bay Area, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you told me that, in terms of how how much you get paid and what you get paid, it's the best, not just in the States, but arguably anywhere in the world. So,
Pretty much.
yeah, so what kind of lifestyle does that afford you?
Well, so because I'm a nurse here in the Bay Area, um, the pay here is high. Like I would say for new grads starting, it would be at least 76 an hour for most hospitals. I would say 76 an hour. And
That's
that's
not
during,
bad.
yeah, and that's during day shift, no evening differential added, and no weekend differential added. So if you want to add those later, obviously it's higher than 76. But then again, because it's the Bay Area, it's very expensive here.
Yeah.
Currently, I live in San Francisco. My apartment rent by itself, without utilities, is 2000 uh, $2,300,
Get out of here.
and I live in a studio. Um,
Holy shit, dude.
I can afford it with my yeah, I can afford it, but it's not like I'm
Wow.
making a lot. Like I can still have savings. I can still do the things that I want to do. But I need to be careful with it because it's expensive. Like that's just rent. If we need to add parking, it's another $200. If we need to add utilities, that's another $250. So it would like range from, 27 to 28 if I'm not careful. And that's just for like living, right? And bills.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't
Literally the
include,
bare
yeah.
necessities. Yeah.
So it doesn't include eating out. It doesn't include miscellaneous activities on the weekends. So I
Mm.
would say that for so we get paid bi-weekly. Um, how do I explain this? Like there will be something left from that paycheck. You know what I'm trying to
Okay.
say? Like
Yeah, yeah.
I won't use it all, but when you see how much you're using out of it, you're just like, oh my god! So you better just not look. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and there's this get
yeah.
yeah, and because we are in the higher tax bracket, we get taxed a lot. I would say almost 40% of our paycheck goes to taxes. Yeah,
That's nonsense.
and then if you want to
No
add
way.
yeah, and then if you want to add like your healthcare, your dental, your vision, that's another chunk that's kind of like they're taking out of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. But then wouldn't you just say it's better to go somewhere where maybe you don't get paid that much, but then you also don't have to pay that much?
That is a very good point that I don't know yet. I don't have experience in that. I only know
Okay.
what it's like to be here in
Yeah.
California. So
I mean,
any
just the logic, right? Just the general logic of it, though.
um maybe because like before I took the job here in San Jose, I know I live in San Francisco, but I actually work in San Jose.
Okay.
Before I took the job in San Jose, I was offered a job in University of Washington, and I they were paying me I believe like 45 an hour,
Mm-hmm.
which is Bay Area is
Significantly
76.
lower than the.
Yeah, Bay
Yeah.
Area is 76 starting. They're starting 45 an hour. And Seattle is not cheap either. I've not lived in Seattle, but it's not cheap in Seattle.
Yeah.
So maybe I'd save more there, but I feel like it's not like a huge
Mm.
difference. Yeah, so if any
Okay.
of the viewers are from Seattle, feel free to put in the comments how much you think you're saving compared like
Yeah.
what your opinion is about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but I mean, rent and apartment prices in the States are like pretty crazy. Just on a side note, like I think I remember I met a friend once on my travels, an American guy who was in Brazil, and I met this guy who was like living in Hawaii, and he was paying like over 3 grand a month for like a one bedroom.
Yeah,
And I was like, how is that even possible? That should not even be possible. You know what I mean?
it's
And then
crazy.
also for you, like now you're mentioning like 40% of your income goes to taxes, like for being a nurse. Like,
Mm-hmm.
come on, man. That's a bit crazy to me. Like, I understand. Okay, like if you work for a private hospital, maybe an argument can be made that it should be different to a public hospital. There could be a debate on that, but still, man, like y'all should be getting major tax breaks and all that stuff for doing public service. You know?
Yeah, but I mean it is what it is. Like yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, but like well, never mind. I was gonna say, oh, there are some perks. I think we get tax
No, yeah.
returns,
Tell me about the perks, right? Yeah, let's do that.
but my best friend was telling me that she was like, "Oh yeah, I think I got like 4 grand back," and I'm like, "Only?" And she's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "That's little," because
Mm,
like if I'm earning $5,000 per paycheck minus 40%, so that's what I have $3,000 left.
Yeah, more or
right?
less.
Am I doing my math right?
Yeah, close
I think
enough.
so. Okay, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, it goes to rent, and then the little bit of it goes to your other, to groceries maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy that it is very expensive to live here in San Francisco, but like we can't do much about it. Like I could live to a cheaper location, but
Hmm.
I still want to enjoy my 20s. I don't want to live somewhere very far from my friends and the nightlife, if I'm being honest with you. Not that I go out
Yeah, of
every
course.
weekend. It's just like, it's just a thing. Like, I feel like after, when I'm like a bit older, I'd be like, yeah, I could settle in deep in the suburbs or something. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Now's not the time for that, man.
not
I
yet.
completely agree with you. Exactly. And I mean, being from a metropolitan city myself, I see it the same way. Like, there's no way I'm moving out to like some rural area now, but maybe 20 years down the line, different priorities, who knows?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so yeah, yeah. But so, okay, so those are like maybe the bad parts about it, right? But like, what's good about it? Obviously, there are good things about being a nurse, otherwise you wouldn't be one. So, what's the good stuff?
Um, it's rewarding, like as I said earlier, some patients are in the hospital for weeks to months, and then, they could either get better or they could not get better. And then when they do, you're like,
Hmm.
oh my God, it's so nice. Like you're finally leaving the unit. So there's that. We get patients who are very, very grateful as well. Like,
Yeah.
I've gotten a box full of donuts well, they gave it to me, but obviously it's for the unit because I'm not going to eat like 2 dozen of it. So yeah, so they do things like that. Or like just when they look at you and they're like, "Oh, hi, how are you doing? You Thank you so much for taking care of my wife, my husband, whatever." It's like it's a good feeling
Yeah.
to be acknowledged, you know?
Hmm.
Not that I'm attention seeking, but it's like, "Oh my God, like thank you so much for acknowledging the things that I've done for, for your
Yeah. You
family."
feel fulfilled, right? Like you've made a difference. Like everyone wants to feel as though they've made a difference.
Yeah,
So
no, that's the
it's
good
a good
part
feeling.
about it. The other good part about it is that the people you work with essentially becomes your family, and then you go in, you're like, oh, I'm excited to work with this person. Like, I have my nursing, well, he's like my best friend in the unit. His name is Andy, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to work with Andy. Or like, I have my other friends working there too, so that, I
Yeah.
look forward to that because like, what else? Like you're stuck with these people for 12 hours. You might as well get along with them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it makes sense then also why you were saying earlier that people just want to quit their jobs because of their coworkers, because
Mm-hmm.
they're stuck in there with them all day. And if you don't like them, then your life becomes hell, no? Becomes pretty
Yeah.
shit. So it makes
Yeah.
sense. But yeah. So okay. So we know each other from traveling, right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So okay. So why don't you tell everyone how we know each other?
So I decided to visit Asia, and instead of going straight from the US to the Philippines, I told myself that, hey, you know what? There's a layover in Taiwan. I might as well stay for a week instead of 5 hours. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll stay here for a week. So I stayed there for a week. I was staying at a hostel. I believe you were staying at a hostel. And you know how
Yes.
some hostels have these things that says like, oh, walking tour or like a bar tour, pub crawl, whatever. I joined the
Yeah.
walking tour. We met at the station. I don't remember the name of the station.
Neither do I. It was actually near a hospital. What are the chances about that? It was near a hospital. I know that.
It was near yours, not mine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because
Whatever. Anyway.
I believe I was further, but I think you were closer to it. You were like in the red zone. I was in like whatever other color, green
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah. So we met there, and then I think we just started talking. Oh, I think you started asking. Wait, sorry. Correct me if I was wrong. You came up to me and the rest of the people I was sitting with because you're like, "Are you guys part of the tour?" And we're like, yeah, what time is it supposed to start? Because like we all believed the tour guide was late. And he
He
was late.
was.
Yeah, he
He
was
was.
late
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
by like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. Right?
Yeah, pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I remember, we all just started walking, and then we all just started talking, and then we met another friend. His name is Remy, you guys. Um,
Yeah.
and then I believe Remy was there because his friends are coming from France, and he wanted to like show them local stuff. But what the funniest thing
Yeah.
is that we didn't even pay attention anymore. We just started talking. We were like on the like all the way on the back, not paying attention and just walking where they're walking. Yeah, and then
I
we just
swear, man.
started chatting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. And then at the end of the tour, I don't know who suggested it, but we were all like, yeah, let's grab food. And we just, got boba and food.
Knowing you is probably you.
It's probably me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah. And
probably
then
me.
actually, the thing that I remember the most about that day, this is a funny story, but you're Asian, and for those people who have that understanding that all Asians, that look like you probably speak Chinese or Mandarin or something like that. And we went there, and it turns out that Remy, who's a French white male, is fluent in Mandarin, and Venice, the Asian female, can't speak a word of it. And all
Yeah,
the vendors are trying to speak Mandarin to her, and she don't understand anything. And then you have this guy who's responding, and it's so weird to look at. It's the thing I can't get out of my head. I can still see it like it was yesterday.
that was so funny because like they looked at me first, and I looked at Remy, and I'm like, I don't understand. And then Remy started talking to them, and I'm like, that's right. I'm just gonna stay far away so you can talk to them, and you
Yeah.
can look at me because I don't understand them. But like with all the discretion here, I am half Chinese. Unfortunately, I do not speak any Chinese at all. I can speak more
Yeah.
Spanish. I can speak more Spanish than Chinese.
What are the chances, man? But yeah, no, but that's pretty accurate. I remember coming out then, and then it was also yeah, like I don't know, we just stayed in touch afterwards. I don't even know how or why,
Legit.
but we just did, because honestly, that was probably one of my favorite tours I've ever done, and not
Well,
because of the actual tour, but because I met you guys.
yeah, well, I
Yeah.
think the reason. So yeah, so we followed each other on Instagram. I remember that night we were talking about what we do, and it was like, I am not working yet, but I will be soon. And you and Remy were working, and then you guys were like, "How can you afford to travel?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I'm broke, but I can travel." And then after my Asia trip, I don't know if you remember, but I went to Mexico for a friend's bachelorette party, and then you put a comment, you're like, how do you do this or something?
Seriously, I was gonna change my career, dude. Because you were okay, so you were in the Philippines, obviously, right after Taipei, but that was your intention anyway. So let's not count that one. But you were in
Okay.
Vegas a couple times, right? You're in
Yeah,
Vegas a couple times. You were in Mexico. You were in Europe,
yeah.
like three countries in Europe or something. Portugal
I
and something else.
Portugal and Spain.
Portugal and Spain. Portugal and Spain. Yeah, and then I mean anything since then I can't quite remember. Maybe domestic stuff.
Domestic. It's just
Yeah, but
a day trip.
still do it. I'm just like, what the hell is going on here? Maybe I need to become a nurse now, man.
Well,
Like
I wasn't even
you're.
a nurse then yet. I was just not working.
Oh man, yeah. But I was very jealous. I honestly, I was thinking about a career change because I was like, this fintech is not doing it for me right now. So
Hey, I mean, if you want to be a nurse, it's not too late. For everyone who's watching, I work 3 days a week, but they're 12-hour shifts. And it could vary. Like my best friend works, well, she's different. She works whenever she wants. She's
mm,
per diem, so she can sign up. But like certain hospitals let you work four 10-hour shifts, four 8-hour shifts. Yeah.
yeah,
So
but, I mean, I'll take the 60, 70, 80 grand salary a year, but I'll stay here with that salary. Then it's fine,
yeah,
because
it
it
is a little too
converts to way more.
expensive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah,
like gas prices here are so expensive. It's crazy.
everywhere, dude. Everywhere.
I pay for gas.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my god, my money is going to this.
yeah. It's pretty. I mean, it's everywhere because of whatever's going on in the world. But you know, it's gotta be what it's gotta be, I guess.
Okay, I know it's different. Like, how much is gas per gallon there? I know you guys don't do gallon, but we do gallon. So you're gonna have to
Yeah,
adjust to me.
yeah, yeah. So it's. I mean, depends. I mean, there's a cap in price on diesel in Thailand because they like the government subsidizing the people, like the truckers and the agriculture workers that need diesel to do blue collar jobs. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that one's capped at. I mean, it's definitely under $1. So like 80 cents, maybe 70, 80 cents.
Per gallon?
And then per liter.
Okay, somebody has to do the conversion here.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm gonna assume it's the same. But a liter is 1,000 ml, so I don't know what a gallon is in comparison.
I'm
So whatever, it's fine. Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah. But yeah, okay. So it's just under $1 a liter, and then for normal vehicles, it's above $1. Maybe $1.20, $1.25, and then I think the most expensive one's probably about $1.35. So, which is pricey. Hey, like the average salary for like someone coming out of college here and working in this country, it's not even $600, like $650 maybe if you're lucky in Bangkok.
Mm-hmm.
So $1 for a liter, and then you got to fill your car up about 30 liters, 32 liters. So
Right.
that's a lot of money. Hey, so
That is a lot of money. Yeah. I sometimes I
yeah,
forget that there's a huge difference in conversion rates, but gas prices here in San Francisco or Bay Area, I'd say, I pay $5.25 a gallon, and
yikes.
I drive a Toyota Corolla, so so when I'm working, I load my tank every 3 days, and I end up paying $56 every 3 days to feed my car. Some
Dude, that's crazy. Why don't you just use public transport? Just get an Uber or something.
Uber would be more expensive. That would be like
Okay.
$50 per day. So no, thank
Per
you.
day.
I could
Okay.
use public transportation like a train or something, but I don't know. I haven't tried it. It's just I know that if I take the train, I can walk there, which is about a 15-minute walk. It's nothing to me, and then it'll
Hmm.
take me maybe an hour and a half to get
Yeah.
to the other train station, and from that train station, I'm gonna have to take Uber to the hospital. So there's a lot of transfers. Like, um, I understand that it's cheaper, but there's also a lot of transfers. But then if I'm driving, um, there's traffic, but I don't have to transfer. So it's kind of like, oh, what do I want to do? And I do carry a lot of things. Like I have my lunch bag, my bag, and my giant water bottle. So I'm like, I'll just drive. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No,
but
I
we'll
mean
see.
time is precious as well, because if you take
Hmm.
all these trains and all these transfers, it would probably take you more time just
Yeah,
loitering around at the stations or just sitting on the train doing nothing. Whereas at least if you're driving, you're getting from A to B at your own pace, like with intention. Some people care a lot about time. I definitely care a lot about time.
yeah,
So
I can blast loud music. No one would care.
exactly,
Yeah,
exact couple karaoke or whatever. Why not?
yeah, sing my heart out before I go insane at work. Because you could go crazy at work sometimes. You're like, oh my god, what's going on again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, so tell me this, like obviously from someone who's in a third, like from a third person point of view, like San Francisco, San Jose, that area is very like popularly known on polar opposite ends of two things. Like obviously it's one place where you have all the Silicon Valley tech giants, money men and money women, and people who become billionaires and live the American dream, if you want to call it that. But then on the other hand, you have people that are barely making ends meet, like
Yeah.
literally, poverty and all that kind of stuff, right? So
Mm-hmm.
many people, at least the people I speak to, often tell me like San Francisco is like the place to be. You know what I mean? If you want to make it big in tech, you got to go to San Francisco. But what do you think, like from your perspective, if you're not in that field, is it just good for like people who don't do tech or people who don't do finance or, like, is there actually, a chance for success, or is like, other cities in the country better for these kinds of jobs that are not in that field?
Um. So yeah, your friend is right. Definitely, if you're if you're in tech, come to the Bay Area because
Mm,
this is the tech hub. I know a lot of people who are in finance, so that's another thing. Like it's literally what you
hmm.
said, tech and finance.
Yeah.
Um, we have a lot of good hospitals here. So there's Stanford, there's UCSF. What else is here? There's El Camino Health. All those hospitals I just named to you are magnet hospitals, which means that they have like they perform like excellent patient care. Um,
Okay.
so if you're a doctor, I think those hospitals are good for you as well. So yeah, definitely stay in the Bay Area. But I know a lot of doctors who are like switching from, let's say, Bay Area to another place because, they can do that. They can work in multiple hospitals and like, oh yeah,
Right.
Dr. Smith is going to be at Stanford Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, he's going to be in Ohio. So they do things like that. So in terms
Okay.
of like that type of things, like, oh, you want to be at Stanford for certain things, or if you want to be at UCSF for certain things, definitely stay here. In terms of other professions like architecture, I can't speak to that. I am not very aware of that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's okay.
in terms of what other things are there, I know there's plenty of things. So I talked about healthcare, I talked about finance, I talked about tech. Real estate, I think maybe a lot of people want to move to the Bay Area. Maybe real estate, like you definitely make a lot of money here, obviously, if you sell, because it's expensive. Houses are expensive here. And
Right.
no one works for free. So obviously, you're going to put your professional fee on top of that or commission, whatever they call it. So
Yeah, yeah,
maybe
yeah.
real estate, yeah. Maybe real estate. Let's see.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. Most of my friends are in tech. Most of my friends are, yeah, most of them are in tech. So
Well, they're there for a reason, right? So
they
it
are
makes
here
it
for a
makes a
reason.
whole lot of sense, man.
Yeah, and yeah, so yeah, they're here, and they're doing generally like pretty. They're pretty well off with their like first job coming out of college, and they do well. So it's good for them, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, well, before I wrap up the show, I gotta ask you, where are you traveling next?
Oh no! Where am I So you know what? I was supposed to be in New York, but I had to sit that one out because I got into an accident, and I was like, "Oh, I can't go to New York anymore." So there's no New
Yeah, yeah.
York. Unfortunately, you guys, my passport is expiring. I have 3 months left. I I had no idea. I did not know until yesterday when I was trying to book for flights. My friend just left for Serbia a month or two ago. Sorry, a month and a half
Okay.
ago. Yeah, she lives here. She left for Serbia, and I told her that I would spend Orthodox Christmas with her, and that's supposed to be in January, and that's if my passport comes on time. So, tentative to Serbia.
I've heard really good things about it. I'm not gonna lie. I have a friend who, funnily enough, I also met in Brazil, who spent like 3 months in Serbia and said it was the best nomad experience of his life. I was like, Serbia? Wow. So
Yeah,
maybe
I
you're in
heard
for a
Eastern
treat,
Europe is
man.
wild.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. If you have time, you gotta go down to like all the other places like Croatia and all that stuff. But it's winter
Hmm.
though, so
I like the
you
cold,
know,
but we'll see. I've never been to Eastern Europe when it's winter, so I wouldn't know. But
it's
ten-
freezing.
Serbia is still my plan. Hopefully, well, I haven't even applied for my passport renewal yet, but we'll get
Man, I'm
there.
like proper jealous, dude. I'm proper jealous because I ain't going anywhere.
Why not? You should go everywhere.
Oh yeah, tough
Wait,
times right now, but soon, soon, hopefully soon.
okay, I'll like meet you halfway.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I don't know. Maybe we'll find a place and we'll. I mean, maybe Taiwan again. Who knows?
Well, my friends and I, here's an actual plan. My friends and I are planning to go to Bali in Korea next year, November. So we'll see. We thought about going to Thailand too, and I was like, oh, I know somebody who lives in Thailand. Like he could show us to places, and he's a
Of
local.
course.
But we'll see. It's my group of friends. We can be very like, oh, I kind of actually want to go here instead. So we see how it works.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
stop by, anytime, anytime. Welcome anytime
Well, you're welcome anytime. Come through
to the
California.
US. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just expensive.
Well, it takes forever to get a visa as well for the Thai passport, right? So,
Yeah.
lots of different obstacles there. But yeah, I mean, I have to at some point. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we can just wrap up the show and
Okay.
just say thanks to everyone for like tuning in and listening. I hope like people actually got something about nursing industry and a little bit about the San Francisco life and also the luxuries that come with being a nurse, right? It's not
Mhm.
every job that you can travel the country and the world. So nursing allows you to do that.
Yeah, it
uh,
will. It
eh,
will.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, thanks, Venice. I appreciate it as always. I hope you had fun too.
I had fun. Thanks for having me. This is like the very first. This is the very first podcast I've ever been invited to, so it's cool. Yeah, it was nice. People have
Yay! Awesome.
questions, put it on the comments or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Put in the comments and then see if we can get some answers to that. So yeah, thanks again, Venice, and have a good one.